I was just trying to figure out like how do I kind of intro myself. Katie can be kind of intimidating. She's quiet, you know.
He's kind of intimidating because I didn't talk to anybody.
We may be the two least approachable people in reality TV.
How did you two warm up to each other then? Right, because you got.
Welcome to Meetings That Changed My Life, where I sit down with creative duos to hear how they teamed up to make work that changed the game. I'm sitting down with reality royalty Nick Viall and Vanderpump vet Katie Maloney. We're gonna talk about how they linked up and what it means to expand their growing empires. I'm your host, Bimma, and this meeting is now in session.
Katie and Nick, thank y'all so much for joining us on Meetings That Changed My Life. How are you?
Good, thank
we're well,
you.
yeah. Thanks for having us.
Katie, talk to me a little bit about your big break on Vanderpump. What was it like on the early days of the show?
It was kind of strange because I was still like working at SUR and waiting tables. The show got really popular pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It was just really fun to do with all my friends at the time.
Did you know most of the cast or?
They were all my actual friends and best friends. We all were already hanging out. My boyfriend then became my husband, now ex-husband, at the time as well was part of it. So it just was a good time.
What did you immediately notice changed?
I wasn't making a whole lot of money for a while, so that didn't change. I still was like having to like wait tables, and I don't know. I mean, obviously, like people recognize you, and that's kind of strange. But they don't know where they recognize you from. They're like, "Did you go to Cal Poly?" You're like, "No."
You're
They're
like,
like,
"No."
and then you're like, eventually you have to go like, "Bravo," and they're like, "Oh yeah." So that was like kind of like the main change that happened.
Nick, how about you? I know like the world, we first came to know you through Bachelor Nation, right? What actually spurred the creation of Viall Files?
Like I think unlike Vanderpump, where you have this recurring season and they were kind of building something from scratch, and like Vanderpump was kind of their own kind of baby that they could really like turn into something. Bachelor was like this proven entity, right? That kind of recycled at least 60 new personalities every year. And so coming off of that, you're just trying to figure out what can I do with this like opportunity? You know, you're kind of gifted almost like a following, a public presence, you know, for better or worse, you know, people just certainly know who you are. And then you think to yourself, like, do I just kind of go back to the life I had, or do I try to make something of it? But what does that even look like? And I think I just kind of tried a bunch of different things, and everyone always told me I'm long-winded, you know. It's like, you know, right or wrong, I'll share my opinion, you know. So like, I thought, you know, this, you know, podcasting became more and more popular, and I just kind of thought to myself, I think maybe I could be good at this. And then it started the Viall Files and kind of went from there.
Katie, I'm curious to know how the two of you actually met. Take me into what was happening.
We were both in Vegas for like a brand party kind of trip. Was it the hotel lobby or like
I think it was the hotel lobby.
Yeah, maybe. It was Vegas.
It was Vegas.
At that point, I wasn't watching Vanderpump. I had known certainly of the show, its popularity. I had met a few of its casts, but I hadn't met Katie before.
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out like how do I kind of intro myself. Katie can be kind of intimidating. She's quiet, you know.
He's kind of intimidating because he doesn't talk to anybody.
Yeah, that's true.
Like he's like, you're not really like approachable, but I guess I am approachable.
We may be the two least approachable people in reality TV.
Are you introverted?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely am. As much as I love being with my friends and hanging out, like I sometimes.
You're not like, I'm not trying to go talk to random people.
Yeah.
I'm not like the center of attention, social butterfly. I'm really not. As much as like I am really friendly to people, I just am not really that person.
Yeah, I can be similar. I'm like I'm like a more of an ambivert, but like I think my resting state is more introverted. You know, like I always say, like I can be cold, but when I'm warm, I'm hot. You know, like it takes me long to warm up, but like I can be standoffish for sure.
So then, how did you two warm up to each other then? Right, because you got
tequila. Yeah. Oh, I remember what it was. I was teaching about tequila and why Patron was superior to.
Was this like a random hotel bar?
It was Patron party.
Yeah.
It was- yeah. So you were like, I don't really know much about tequila, and I'm like, what are you doing here? Basically, because you're like, I don't really drink this other one. I was like, why do you like that? And then I was just basically like telling you why this one was so good in comparison. I was giving him like
She educated me.
I was like, an education on tequila, and I was like definitely like drunk, but like
I haven't drinking another tequila since.
that was me coming out of my shell of it all. But then then we all went out afterwards, and we think we were all like hanging out at that point, so we became friends.
Tequila has a way of lowering our boundaries to get to know other people, right? Did either of you actually get into conversation around like where you were in your individual careers, and like, did you actually have the conversation?
I definitely like at some
show?
point in I've been like, you should come on the show sometime.
I think it was like the next day we were talking on the flight home, and you're like, oh yeah, you want to come on my show? And I was like, totally, definitely. Top 3 reality shows of all time: Jersey Shore, Real World, and Bug Juice. Podcasting or reality TV? I kind of like podcasting more because I get to tell the stories that I want to tell. Reality TV can be a little daunting, and it's sometimes too dramatic, and I don't like fighting with my friends.
Nick, so talk to me. At this point, Viall Files is like a pop culture mainstay. When did you start thinking about expanding NV Media?
Yeah, I had thought about it a while. I'd seen other successful shows try, some succeed, some fail, and so that was always in the back of my mind. I think I thought about doing a podcast for like a year before I did a podcast. And I'm glad I did, because there were other opportunities I had like just didn't feel right, and I would have gotten myself into a situation where I couldn't have started the Viall Files. And same with like starting NV Media and signing a show. It was less like, I want to do this, but like it really mattered to me what was going to be the first show. Someone to take a chance on me in terms of like, yeah, I can do a podcast, but can I also produce a show? But it also like, it had to be with the right person, it had to be the right fit, someone who I believed in, someone who I thought could like make, another hit show and like be reliable and care about their show as much as I cared about mine. And I think
that's a big deal, right? It's like
that's
finding
everything.
someone that's like, no, I'm actually invested in this beyond just being talented.
I mean, honestly, it's probably the number one thing, if it's like just caring, just having a passion for what you're doing. And I think that's one of the things I love most about Katie, is that she doesn't take her situation and what she has a lot going for her, but she doesn't take it ever for granted. You can work with a lot of things, but you can't work with someone's motivation and passion, how much they care about the work they put into the things that they're doing.
Whose idea was it to actually do the show together?
It's kind of a slow burn. So I had a podcast at another network, and my life changed a lot over the course of a couple years, and I just wasn't connecting to that show and that format and what it was about, and I wanted to change it, and I really wanted to do something with Dana, who's my co-host, and I really liked our dynamic together, and I wanted to do something that was meeting me where I was at in life, and her and I had this really great idea to do something together and cover topics that we wanted to talk about, and just like kind of have like fun together. I'd been like hanging out with like Nick and Natalie, and just talking about life and get Nick's advice about dudes and things like that. But then I also because I really respected like his show, and like I knew he was really like smart and like business savvy, and like how he went about doing like his own podcast, and it was very successful, obviously. So I was just like, what advice do you have for what we should do with this show and where we should go, and kind of just wanting his take on all of that. He kind of talked to us and told us what his idea was. We were talking about our show, and he had some like really great, like awesome feedback in terms of like what we could do and ideas with that way. So we just knew like this could be like a really great relationship and working together and building our show and putting it out there. And like he was very supportive, and he's a really great person to have behind it. It made sense.
Nick, was it like music to your ears when you were hearing kind of what Katie and Dana were thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because again, like I was just trying to find the right fit. When Katie came to me and just kind of talking about general like podcast advice, I was been like, well, I'm interested in like doing this with you. And then it kind of like Katie said, I had to explain that. And just knowing what Katie and Dana wanted to talk about, I thought it really just fit with the audience I already have. It was like Viall Files adjacent, and it was just, I've seen other podcasts have similar but different ideas, but have success. I saw their vision, and I saw how big it could be. From that point, it was just kind of like checking in with them, and we just got more and more familiar with each other. And like the first couple months, it's one. I think we've both been pitched. In LA is a town where you just you hear a lot of BS. There's a lot of people who talk big games, and a lot of people who are always acting like they're doing things. And Katie and I were still relatively new with each other, so we're kind of feeling out each other's almost sincerity. And I think the more we talked, the more we felt good about it. It's been a hit ever since, and their show's been crushing ever since it came out.
You and Dana ended up partnering with Nick on the show Disrespectfully. Tell me about the name. Where did the name come from?
I mean, we definitely wanted something punchy, obviously. Not giving an F, and like this is like who we are, and like this is how we live life, and making no apologies, and taking no shit from anyone. You know what I mean? Like, this is what it is. It's a lifestyle.
My top 3 reality TV shows, I'm gonna go Vanderpump 1 just because I just think it's probably, arguably, the greatest reality TV show of all time. Then I'm gonna say Love Island USA because it's the reality TV show that I recently finished and binged, and it's my new favorite reality TV show. And then I'm gonna say Love is Blind because currently I think it's probably the best current show out right now. If I had to do the Bachelor experience all over again, I would absolutely do it. It had its extreme highs, it had its extreme lows, but everything I'm doing today is a direct result of my time there. Despite all the lows, you know, I wouldn't be sitting here today, I wouldn't be in business with Katie, I probably wouldn't even have met my wife if I hadn't gone on The Bachelor. I'm a big believer in the whole kind of butterfly effect.
Kate, you and Dana, you know, you've referred to this time as your after divorce era, right?
Yeah.
So what has it been like to reposition yourself and also talk about this part of your life on the podcast? It's vulnerable, it's open, and you're getting into topics that perhaps you weren't able to get into in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes people can look at this time in your life as like starting over or really daunting or like it's just kind of sad. And I don't think it has to be. And I think a lot of women relate to that, and it can be a really exciting time. And the unknown, it doesn't have to be scary. It can be a gift to yourself when you know that other people are connecting to you, or when someone's like, you know what, you helped me leave a really tough relationship that I just couldn't get out of. It always just feels good, and it makes you want to keep going back. I'll do it every day if it's gonna help people out.
It sounds fulfilling. Nick, as you continue to build out Envy Media, right? You're talking to Kate and you're like, your fans are gonna change and these things are gonna grow. How's your fan base grown and evolved over the years, and how do you stay kind of tapped into those shifts?
I think it's mostly grown in size in terms of like the types. For whatever reason, I've a primarily woman audience.
He said for whatever reason.
I'm very grateful for. I think the main tenet of a lot of things I talk about on my show is just like life is so much just about your perspective, you know, and you have the power to change your thoughts and how you see things.
Yeah.
Katie and Dana talking about being women in their 30s, Katie coming out of a divorce, like Katie said, I think society tells us a lot of different things on how we're supposed to feel about that situation and how we're supposed to see ourselves. I don't know what it's like to have been divorced, and I don't know what it's like to be a woman in her 30s, but I do know I've had a lot of failed relationships, I've made a lot of mistakes, I've had those be judged on TV, and I've had a lot of people tell me how I'm supposed to feel about the situation I'm in, and it's very easy to fall in that trap. It's really cool to see Katie and Dana like change that perspective and offer people a new approach. I think my audience has always been those types of people who are just like feel like they've been stuck in a certain mindset of their life, and they've like looked to either disrespectfully or the Viall Files to change that mindset. I think we grow our audience through like covering popular pop culture moments or reality TV shows or having like big name guests on our show, and I think it grows that way. And I think a lot of people stick around for some of the life lessons that like we surprisingly offer in our show, even though we're talking about like the stupidity that's going on The Bachelorette or Love is Blind or whatever. And so we try to take, you know, the conversations that are happening on reality TV and pop culture and grow them through like, you know, the conversations we want to have about our personal life. Like Katie said, it can be very rewarding when you get letters or comments or, you know, even invites to people's weddings who like, you know, attribute like some of their success in life to like how you've helped them. And I think we feel very grateful to have been able to do that, because at the end of the day, we just get to sit behind a mic and say, you know, crazy things.
Yep. Yeah.
What do y'all believe is like maybe the future of like reality TV?
I think the future for reality TV is limitless. I think it's getting more and more popular, cheap to make, just compared to like prestige television.
I ain't cheap. Well, I think what's happening though is also like the audience is much more sophisticated. It's so they understand how reality shows are made. So I think the way that they're made and the way that it's addressed in terms of like the production behind it sort of needs to shift a little bit. You know, people are just like, how real is this? How fake is this? So not acknowledging that like there is a show being made is doing a bit of a disservice. So it's not fake, but it's also not being scripted in that sense. I have ideas. I'm not going to share them here because why would I do such a thing?
It's like, nah.
I think there's a lot of legacy media companies who have had a lot of success making shows. ABC, The Bachelor, Bravo, and their franchise, and they do a great job. But you're right, like media has changed, and that's conversations that I've tried to have with people who are in those kind of legacy positions, where it's just like they film a show, they kind of put it on hiatus, then you come out, you air it. Like I think you look at what like Love Island is doing right now. It's a show show that is airing in almost real time, and the way people are covering it is very different than other shows. And to Katie's point, I think, you can acknowledge that it's still a TV show, and you can still have authentic moments and stop pretending it's like recorded live. With the way media has taken off and like podcasts like Disrespectful or the Viall Files, now the way people are like following talent, and they want to get to know these people. And I think people realize there's so many more of these characters than that we got to see on the show. They kind of get siloed. And then there's so many opportunities to kind of keep the story going. Love Island does a great job of that. I would be surprised if you're not seeing other shows trying to like take a page out of their success.
Katie and Nick, thank you both for coming, joining us
so
on
much.
Things That Changed My Life. It's been really dope to learn about how you two have come together and what you're building.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks
your
so
time.
much.
Appreciate it.